This is Hitesh Rajwani, and on the first episode of the Pulse podcast, I got an opportunity to interact with an industry icon, a legend. People call him the media wizard. He's seen the advertising and marketing industry from close quarters for over 50 years now. He started his career in marketing, switched to advertising, and then moved on to build a small agency with a few large clients. Those who know, I'm talking about Sam Balsara, the chairman at India's largest homegrown agency network, Madison World. For this first episode of the podcast, from now on, we'll have our cover star on the Pulse podcast as well, just to get a better understanding of their life, their career. On the cover today, we have Mr. Sam Balsara. He's the chairman at Madison World. He recently completed almost 50 plus years in the business of advertising and marketing. And there's a lot to learn from him as a person, because a lot of what happened in the world of advertising and marketing before 2000s is something that he's seen and a lot of people have not seen and not heard of. So today we are trying to capture some of the stories which people might not have heard of, people might not even know of, but there's a lot to learn from them. Welcome to the Pulse podcast, Sam. It's an honor to have you on this chat show. And
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
To start off, to start off the Pulse podcast, I think there couldn't have been a better person than you. So Sam, I think I would want to start it from your journey, and not just about your journey into the world of advertising and marketing, but how was childhood like for you, and how did it all start for you?
Oh, you're taking me back a long time, but
almost
in history. I'm 73 now, so you're taking me to, the first, although I was born in Bombay, since my mother's family is from Bombay, my father's family lived in a place called Balsar, from where I get my name Balsara.
Yeah.
So my father and his father, my grandfather, were what you call forest contractors. And they lived in Balsar, and they operated in the forests of Gujarat, near about kind of Balsar. So the business was one of, you had to bid for sort of tracts of the forest, and then all the wood, all the trees you could cut down and sell the wood and thereby make a living. One fine day, that business was nationalized. So therefore, after living in Balsar up to, I think, my standard 6, my dad, who had lost his livelihood at a rather late age, then moved to Bangalore, which was itself quite a bold move, I would say, from a one-house town of like Balsar to, I would say, a city like Bangalore, which was a little more sophisticated, westernized, and more English-speaking, I would say. I think that move was very good for me, for my foundation, because then I went to a much better school in Bangalore, Bishop Cotton's. And my father then took over a hotel called Mesh's Hotel, which also kind of exposed me to a few, what should I say, niceties and graces of life. So that is how my early life was. I then, from school, that is when also after school I faced my first major failure, because I, in what was called PUC, I failed in Hindi, which was quite shocking because I had to lose a year because of that. After that, I think I did my BCom and I was all set to become a chartered accountant. And then something happened in my mind. And I said, why don't I try my hand at this newfangled management of business schools which had begun to emerge. I did not get admission into IIM Ahmedabad, although I had applied. But I was fortunate that I got admission at Bajaj Institute in Bombay. And I was, of course, familiar with Bombay because my mother is from here. She had a huge house. It's a family house. It's a 97-year-old house in which I live even today. So it was kind of comfortable. I came down from Bangalore to Bombay to do this management course. And ever since, I've not left Bombay.
So, like you mentioned that, like you were to become a CA, and then I'm assuming that CA was a very obvious choice for a lot of people in terms of a career. And then you switched sides to management, got into an MBA. But how did advertising and marketing happen to you? And
so, again, nothing very dramatic. The person who taught me marketing in year one was a person called Pran Chowdhury, whose claim to fame was Horlicks. And then he had left that cushy, comfortable multinational job to join Sarabai's, which was a kind of a conventional manufacturing setup, making Swastik hair oil. And then they had gone into detergents, which were a newfangled thing at that time. So they started a separate marketing company. They said it will be too difficult to make Swastik manufacturing a 100-year-old company understand and change to modern concepts of marketing. So they started a separate marketing company where they hired a lot of MBAs and stuff like that. And Pran Chowdhury offered me a job as a management trainee there. And that is why I just went with the flow and took it up.
And what was the reaction of your parents when you said that you want to get into marketing? And
no, my parents were fine with it. I mean, obviously, I think in those days, getting into a management school was a very tough and big thing. And, I think even in my Bajaj Institute, the class had just 30 students.
Oh.
So, and there were lakhs of applicants. So, having got selected there, there was no question then of not taking it. So obviously, I think my parents were also reasonably happy.
Yeah. And so you said that you started your career with Sarabai's, and then obviously you worked for Cadbury as a brand manager too. How did you decide from being on the brand side at that point in time?
So after 4 years in Sarabai's, then 4 years in Cadbury, 8 years in sort of brand management, I was wondering to kind of become a holistic marketing person. I needed to have the experience of both sales and advertising, because I think in my mind, these were the two important other legs for a marketing person. So I think an opportunity came up in advertising. HTA, or as it's called JWT now, was starting its second agency called Contract. They already had a person called Raj Jagga, who was excellent as heading Contract, as general manager. and they had already done a good job in enticing Mohammed Khan to come in as the creative director. So they convinced me to hop over and take the job of head of client service. So that is what I did. And that is how my advertising career started.
So how was it like from being a client yourself at Cadbury to a client?
I think it was I wouldn't say a traumatic move, but it was a dramatic change. But I think the reason I was reasonably successful at it was, if I may say so myself, I think I don't have much of an ego. I think when you shift over from marketing to advertising, I think at work you have to leave your ego at home. Because anybody on the client side can make your life miserable. And I think in hindsight, I could make the switch, I think, because of this characteristic or personality of mine. I think otherwise, I would say for many other marketing people, advertising may not be the right choice.
Right. So I'll take a personal.
When I say advertising, I mean working in an advertising agency.
I'll take a personal anecdote here. So I remember that when I was writing my college SOP, I'd mentioned you as a role model, as a person I would take inspiration from. But I want to understand from you, if I go back in your time, who were some of your role models in advertising and marketing, or like in that business of management that you looked up to and you were like, these are the people I should be following?
So obviously, I think in the early days, the people who taught me marketing, mainly Pran Chaudhary and Tarun Gupta, who was then in Laxo, I think both of them were operating marketing people. So I think their lectures were always full of their personal experiences and anecdotes and all that, which kind of made it very fascinating. I think today, the one major thing I see is that very often marketing in these hundreds of institutes is taught by, what would you call them, professional academicians. I think which to my mind leaves a kind of void.
So less of practice.
Subsequently, I would say I'm a very focused, down-to-earth person, and I know that my time is at a premium. So I try to use my limited time in a very productive way. For example, if I read something, I have a weakness for how to 10 ways to become successful. Mm-hmm. So if you see most of my books there, will have those kind of things. Because I feel that if I'm investing, 25 hours in reading a book, then I must get something out of it. I'm not one for reading fiction or stuff like that. So I think I try to, in the early days, I think Theodore Levitt, Philip Kotler, then subsequently, Jack Trout and Al Rice. And, these have been some of my favorite authors because they wrote in a beautiful way and their books were full of case studies and examples, of course, from America. But you could sort of more easily relate to them as a marketing challenge. I remember the book on 22 immutable laws of marketing. The book was brilliant for its time.
I know you've put it on your Instagram post also, that the books that you recommend, I think all of these books you've mentioned.
In fact, when my daughter Lara got into the business, and she was once asked to make a presentation on Madison after she had spent 2-3 years in Madison, she made a presentation and titled it The 10 Immutable Laws of Madison.
So coming back to your earlier careers in advertising, contract was your first job in advertising, and then from contract you joined Mudra.
Correct.
And Mudra you spent about 4 years.
Yes.
I read in an interview that you were
so
number two.
I've done 4 jobs.
Yeah.
Each job surprisingly was 4 years.
Okay.
2 jobs in marketing, 2 jobs in advertising. And then I decided to start Madison. Again, let me tell you, the reason I decided to start Madison was not because at that time I had some huge entrepreneurial streak or, it was my dying passion or ambition to be on my own and start a journey. But when I was working in Mudra, and after, I would say, we had achieved reasonable success at Mudra, Mudra developed the ambition of wanting to become the largest agency in India. So they reasoned that why should the largest agency in India be a foreign agency? We are Indian, we understand India. That slot should rightfully belong to Mudra. They were not wrong, but I thought that I was not the person who can take Mudra to that spot, nor would I enjoy it. Because in my view, maybe stupidly, I thought a good agency, in those days, a good agency is a small agency with a few large clients. So I started Madison with that belief. And if you see Madison's early years, almost first 20 years, I stayed true to that founding philosophy. For example, we started with Godrej and Nelco. For almost the first 5 years of Madison, we did not take on a third client. Not because clients were not coming to us. Forget even participating in a pitch. I thought to myself, I don't want to bite more than what I can chew. And I didn't want to let down my 2 founding clients, who had put so much of their faith and trust in me. It was only after, I would say, 4 or 5 years that we began to slowly, expand.
I remember, I read this somewhere that your first client of Godrej happened that you met the founders at Godrej at the Juhu Beach House. So, what transpired in that meeting, and was it a typical client agency conversation, or
No, well, it's nothing very dramatic. I mean, at Mudra, I was dealing with Godrej. When I say Godrej, of course, is very large and diversified. I'm talking about what was then called Godrej soaps.
Yeah.
So I was dealing with the Godrejes, Mr. Adi Godrej, Parameshwar Godrej, and at that time, Tanya Godrej, who was relatively very young. So once this idea occurred to me that maybe I should start a small agency with one or two large clients, obviously it was natural for me to sort of approach them.
do you still feel that for any agency to start in today's day and age, they should go by this principle of being a small agency with a few large clients rather than aiming to be a big agency with X number of clients?
See, I think there are different ways to skin a cat. So, given my personality, my beliefs, I would say that is the right way. Of course, it's a question of circumstances and resources available. I mean, somebody else, coming from a very successful family with large resources, obviously, who wants to start advertising not because he's passionate about advertising, but as a business, would have a completely different perspective. He would want to hire 15 professionals on day one, set up infrastructure, set up. There are different ways to kind of do it.
Who was your first hire at Madison?
Fortunately for me, Madison was already an existing agency that was not doing too well. And the agency but had accreditation with INS, which in those days was reasonably important. And it also had premises in Fountain. So I took over the agency by becoming initially a partner in it. And then over 2-3 years, the existing partner retired, so to speak. So that way, I would say it was a little effortless. And I think it had some 10, 12 people also. So I retained all those 10, 12 people. The first person, obviously, I got on board, was a lady, Prabha Prabhu, who was in Mudra with me. And she readily agreed to join. And of course, she had a kind of arrangement where she benefited from the profits of the company.
And speaking of the people you worked with and hired, who are some of the Madison alumnus that you're very proud of, that they're out there in the industry, may not be with you right now, but they're out there in the industry and doing
we
great.
are. I think I can say with some satisfaction that many of the senior people are all Madisonites. I think starting with CVL Srinivas, who is the head of WPP now, he is Madisonite.
Yeah.
Ajit Varghese is a Madisonite. Karthik Sharma,
Omnicom Media.
Omnicom is a Madisonite. I don't know, so many others possibly at a lower level sort of.
Coming back to your initial days of Madison, I know that the media keeps asking you about Madison being acquired or you putting out, like you exploring the market to sell it out. But I read that in the past you've had your fair shares of mergers or acquisitions. Like I think in 1993, you signed a JV with DMB&B.
So,
How was that like?
one very propitious thing that happened for Madison is that Godrej, which was then obviously one of our 3 or 4 clients, and certainly the largest, tied up with Procter and Gamble.
Yeah.
It was a unique arrangement where the marketing of Godrej brands would be done by Procter and Gamble, and the manufacturing would be done by Godrej Soaps. So, because when we first got the news, we were a little concerned that we would therefore lose the Godrej account to the agencies of Procter and Gamble. But as luck would have it, Procter and Gamble was very happy with the way that we were handling the Godrej brands and actually wanted us to handle Procter and Gamble brands, and therefore actually encouraged us to do a tie-up with this agency called DMB&B, which we did, because of which we started handling Procter and Gamble's Whisper and Vicks, 2 very big brands of Procter and Gamble. So I think it was good because we got exposure to working with Procter and Gamble. We got exposure to working with DMB&B. Of course, there were sort of challenges, I would say. And, as you can imagine, I was much younger and obviously had a certain strong point of view in everything that I did or I do. So it was a little difficult to kind of continue. It was not an easy decision. I mean, I must confess, to some extent, I did not fully anticipate the consequences of parting with DMB&B, because in a matter of, not only did we lose the creative business of these 2 brands, we then lost Synthol, and then I think there was a domino effect. So we lost 70% of our business, of our revenue, actually, in the year that followed this breakup. But again, I think we were a little fortunate that we could build the business, but with a slight directional change in the media area very well. And also, of course, what worked for us is that despite the breakup, Procter and Gamble continued to deal with us for media whilst taking away the creative business.
So, and like coming back to Godrej as a client, I know I've read some bits of this story that Godrej Synthol had gotten into a fight of sorts with livers, and there was a good fight with Liril at that point in time, and then there were some clients who were approaching you to create that kind of controversy. So if you could like share that story in detail, because what is available in media about it is very limited. Like you can't picture that completely. So what happened?
So it was a very, very big story of those days. Of course, you could say that we were heavily involved with toilet soaps.
Yeah.
Because Godrej soaps was our client, and Godrej was nowhere as big as Lever, but they were also large in soaps. So Liril was doing extremely well as a lime soap. Liril was actually a copy of the international FA. Those streaks and green and lime and all of that. So we decided to launch a lime version of Synthol called Synthol Lime. After everything was decided, actually, and the film was made, unfortunately, the launch was delayed because I think we had missed the summer season. It was late. So the ready film was just kind of available. And in our naivety, in those early days, we were not so conscious about secrecy, confidentiality, and things like that. There were a few studios in town where most of the ad films were edited, sound was put, this, that, and people would hang around loosely and all that. Unfortunately for us, I think a week before our Synthol Lime film was to be launched, I discovered on a Sunday evening, sitting on my bed on Doordarshan's Hindi feature film, which used to come on Sundays, that this little ad came with the woman in the waterfall and the little jingle and all of that. But suddenly, in that little jingle, out of context, there were one or two shots from my Synthol Lime film, which is the knots and crosses. There was one shot in our Synthol film. It was very nice and a very catchy and a powerful film. So clearly, their intention was to disrupt the launch. So we didn't take it lying down. We went to town on it, and we were on the front pages of newspapers in those days. I remember there was India Today had a cassette called News Track. So News Track carried the story,
And what was the headline like?
Well, I don't remember the headline, but I mean, there were many stories. The thing didn't die down easily. I mean, we were on the front pages of Times of India several times. And I think in hindsight, you could say that probably Synthol Lime gained from all this, because we were on the front pages of so many newspapers and magazines and, all kinds of things. So that led one of my other clients to tell me that, look, why don't you create something like this for me also?
But what about that film of Synthol? That you launched that film then and there, or you waited for the season?
It ran, and it was a huge success. I mean, in the very first month, Synthol Lime achieved 5.3% of the premium in the premium category. The soap was a big hit. The film was very dramatic.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, one of the big, powerful moves of Godrej soaps in those days.
So, like, speaking of your times with, like, after DM, BNB,
BNB.
you said that there was this phase that you lost 70% of the business. Which were some of the clients that helped you bounce back from that and helped you, like, find the course or find the path?
No, I think what happened is that we certainly lost our mojo in creative.
For the media business.
But I think what happened is that by virtue of the fact that Procter and Gamble stayed with us in media, I think our media reputation soared very high.
Yeah.
And we were then able to attract some of the largest clients of the country. So, obviously it was a early start in media for us.
Yeah.
And we were focused on it. So I think it worked well for us.
So it was like a blessing in disguise for you that you found a new direction.
Kind of. I would say the direction had already come, but the focus increased.
You said that, like, a small agency with a few large clients was your philosophy for almost 20 years of Madison's existence. When is it that you realize that you've outgrown this particular philosophy and now is the time to go out and go big?
I think it started around the 90s, in the early 90s, when India also, changed its outlook, when India opened up,
liberalization,
when Manmohan Singh and all announced the new, plans of opening up and liberalization and all that, we began to realize that from small is beautiful, it's now the era of large is good. And I think also that is the time I kind of understood that as we're becoming larger, I need to sort of de-risk the business.
Yeah.
Just handling, 8, 10 large clients is kind of not good for the stability of the business, because anything can happen for several reasons. May not be Madison's fault, global alignments, all that. We may lose a client. So we began to painfully understand that. I think initially it was, maybe I must confess, it was a little vanity on my part. And I said, I'll deal only with the creme de la creme of clients and not. I also thought in those days the kind of structure and all we had, it was not possible for us to offer the kind of media service that we offered to the large clients to a smaller client.
True.
So, it was a bit of both.
And, like, coming to the phase after DMBNP, I think in 2008, you entered into another pact with Mediacom, and, like, you had about 51% of Mediacom and with Group M and WPPs of the world. So how did you deal with those complexities in that age? Because at that point in time, I do understand there were networks who were setting up shop in India, and you had obviously thrived and survived for almost 30 years till that time, 35 years. So how did you deal with complexities of such equations? I know, again, the media has asked you this question multiple times.
See, I think the reality is that we've always been kind of very desirable to the foreign networks.
Yeah.
And Martin Sorrell, I think, made it his business to know me and know me well. And he had, of course, many agencies. As you know, he had Mindshare, he had Maxis, he had Mediacom, he had this thing. Their main desire was to get Procter and Gamble account in India. Procter and Gamble was going in for a pitch, media pitch. Perhaps they got a signal from Procter and Gamble that, look, the only way that you could get our business is if you did a tie-up with Madison. And Madison, I was not that keen at that time on giving equity in Madison to
anyone.
someone else. So then they took the bold step of saying, okay, why don't you take equity in Mediacom? Because what had happened at that, Mediacom was not always their agency. Mediacom was the media division of Grey, which they had acquired globally.
Yeah.
And Mediacom wasn't exactly doing very well in India because in trying to merge Mediacom with Group M, I think there were a lot of casualties. So I thought that Mediacom was, of course, globally it was a good big agency, but in India it wasn't really very on a strong footing. So I think the merger, that's how took place. It was not really a merger. It was, we started a new company, which we owned 51%.
Yeah.
They transferred the existing Mediacom business to this company. And we agreed to pitch for the PNG account jointly between Mediacom and Madison. And we won the business.
So that's what I'm saying, that you've dealt with.
So it was, yes, you could say, a little complex. I would say most people thought that actually I had sold Madison to WPP.
Yeah.
And, otherwise, why would WPP give 51% to Madison? And all kinds of theories were floated in the press. But as ultimately time showed, there was nothing like that. I mean, the transaction was as disclosed that, we were 51% owners of Mediacom in India. After, I think, 7.5, 8 years, we were supposed to give up majority in favor of Mediacom, which we did. And then more recently, when Mediacom had a global plan to merge Essence and Mediacom together, although there was no predetermined agreement, we thought this merger is a good thing for Mediacom's clients, especially P&G, who we respect a lot. And therefore, we decided to sell our balance 26% also to them.
This happened in 2022, I believe, 2022, 2023.
Yeah, we are in 24 now, so I think, maybe 22 would happen.
So you spoke about rumors of Madison selling out to WPP. I think there were conversations or, again, news about Madison exploring something with Dentsu, Madison exploring something with Publicis Group as well. How have you managed to run a independent agency for this long? And what has held you from not selling it out? What has held you from keeping Madison with you for these many years? I think it's 36 years now.
36 years. So, well, you could say I have never sort of planned that, Madison will always be an independent company. So it's not that has been my ambition or something like that. Because if it were, or my belief, if it was, then I would not have done a tie-up with DMBNB. But however, as we kind of grew stronger in the market, we did maybe wrongly had a certain expectation from a partner on, the new way of working, the valuation, how is it good for our employees, how is it good for our clients. So we wanted everything to be right, so to speak. I mean, not to just rush into it at any cost, so to speak. So a lot of people have spoken to us, and we have spoken to them and evaluated options. The fact is, it has not worked out, so it's fine with us.
And so, as of 2024, what's your outset? Are you still looking, or
we kind of,
it's not actively looking?
As we are saying, is that, if there are opportunities, sure, we will evaluate them, and we will always kind of want to make Madison stronger, bigger, more capable, and stuff like that. But everything has to be in place. It's not that we're keen to sort of.
And so Madison also did a brand refresh recently. What triggered that brand refresh for you? And again, what was your thought behind initiating that at this point in time? And this happened a month ago.
Yeah, I think it was not, of course, I'm very fond of the old logo, but I think because the serif type and all that, it was a little looking dated, so to speak. So we thought we should update it, like how all good clients keep updating their logos. Maybe we thought we should have done it a few years earlier. So, refresh it, make it look more modern, reflective of all the changes that are taking place in Madison. One of the things I think we have been successfully doing at Madison is that Madison is constantly kind of changing. It's not, we don't like dramatic sort of changes. Okay, from tomorrow we'll be like this, but we constantly keep evolving.
Right.
And that's how, the changes are always taking place, but they're taking place in a gradual, evolving kind of way, because I believe those are better than a sharp cut. And I thought the brand needed a refresh, so that is what we've done. I'm glad. I think many of our clients have liked the new logo. We've also come up with new film. I don't know if you've seen it. So I think it works well.
All this was done internally, or?
Yes, in fact, a young lady called Nikita, who works with us now not on a full-time basis, but a part-time basis, actually, is the main architect of this, and she has done it.
Coming to your thoughts on the industry at large, what do you think about the current state of advertising and marketing in 2024, and where do you see the industry?
I think the media agency, I would say, has grown very well and has done a remarkable job for advertisers in the last 20-25 years. I would go to the extent of saying that there is no service today that an advertiser gets from a third party that offers the advertiser so much for so little. You could call me biased, but that is what I feel. However, I think as advertisers continue to come under pressure, so to speak, for one reason or another. One time it is raw material inflation, another time it is a delay in monsoon, a third time is oil prices going up, all kinds of reasons. Obviously, the tendency of the advertiser is to cut costs, and this has been the sort of theme of the advertiser for the last 25 years. My one regret is that I think the media agency has not been able to attract the creme de la creme of Indian young talent. As I told you, I am from a management institute of reasonable repute. So, obviously, I do believe that management students bring a certain value to a media agency that the advertiser needs. But the reality is that for so many years, we could not afford one. This year, we have taken the bold step of hiring 2 people, trainees from IIMs, because I thought we should break this thing, and we'll have to take the bold move, irrespective of cost, to bring in high quality talent into the agency. So I think that is my one regret. You can call me biased, but I think it is a little short-sighted on the advertiser part. Because the advertiser has his own challenges. I don't deny that. He's under pressure from all sides, all sides. So whatever he can get away with, he wants to exercise that right. But I think in the long run, it has resulted in some kind of flawed infrastructure, I think, for the media agency.
Like you mentioned about the advertiser, and I think over the years, Madison has had great client agency relationships, like some of the longest relationships that you've had. I think Godrej, whether it's Godrej, PNG, or in the current times, whether it is, I know, Asian Paints, Marico, Tata Group. So, what is your secret sauce, or what is your mantra for like building good client agency relationships and maintaining the right kind of dynamics?
See, I think my philosophy may be flawed in today's time, but my philosophy has always been that we are an extension of the client. Our purpose is to make the client's brand succeed. Our purpose is not to make Madison succeed. Our purpose is to make our client's brand succeed. If my client's brand succeed, then I think Madison will succeed. That has been my kind of belief all this while. And I hope we're able to kind of live up to that I remember in the early days when I was in Cadbury, the internal thinking was that the marketing team should ensure that the agency that works on Cadbury is well compensated for them to be interested in giving their best to Cadbury.
Yeah.
We've come a long way since then. Today, clients employ auditors and external agencies and pay them tons of money with a singular objective of how to cut the agency fee or agency remuneration, which according to me is a little counterproductive for the advertiser.
You said that in the future you see, like, to let the agency ecosystem grow, or even for media agencies to evolve, there is a need of talent from top tier institutions. Other than that, how do you foresee, like, say, the agency of the future or the media agency of the future? What are some of the things that, again, agency leaders should have in mind?
According to me, the emergence of digital as a very strong and dominant medium in India, now contributing to 40% in India amongst advertising, or globally it could be 70%. Whilst all that is very good, I think the one regret or the one concern I have is that the emerging digital talent in the country, whilst they understand digital very, very well, we have not taken efforts to make them understand brand, to make them understand marketing, to make them understand brand finances. They tend to understand how digital works, how to make it work, especially at the low end of the funnel and maybe mid funnel. But marketing, what is the purpose of marketing? The purpose of marketing is to build a permanent place for your brand in the consumer's heart and mind, so that he keeps asking for that brand over and over and over and over again, and is willing to pay a higher price for it. And the brand also meets some emotional need in addition to a physical need. That, to my mind, is the power of marketing. Because then once you build a brand, you don't need to go on multiplying your branding budget.
Right.
So I think we need to focus as the world goes digital. I think we need to provide good training to our digital people on what is marketing, what is branding, what are the core principles of branding, and all of that. I think we have been a little amiss in that.
So how do you think we address that as an industry? There should be more knowledge sharing forums that are there.
I think the digital academies or training institutes and all should focus equally on branding and marketing and all of that, and not just on the tools and techniques of digital, so to speak.
And speaking of digital and technologies, how do you think AI is disrupting the agency business as a whole? Have you seen any big effects, any ripple effects that have happened in the last 2 years?
I'm told many of the sort of tools in a way that we use are actually already getting AI powered. So I mean, AI, I think, is a very good and effective tool to make our tools work better, smarter, faster. So that way, I think it's very, very good.
Do you think AI is affecting job opportunities? Do you think people should consider AI as a threat?
I don't think so. I think, especially in a country like India, I think, which has tons of opportunities, I think AI hopefully will make our tasks easier and faster, and we'll be able to do more. And I think we'll be able to do more thinking work, and AI will take away a lot of the drudgery, so that the real power of the human brain can be utilized in a more constructive way for which it was created.
And coming to the end of this chat, and we'll obviously do a rapid fire after this, but to understand from you, what are some of the trends that are likely to shape the future of advertising and marketing? Some trends which any agency leader should keep an eye on, even advertisers at large should know of, that this is going to happen in the coming times.
I think, unfortunately, because of the ecosystem of startups and private equity players and all of that, I think the role of branding which according to me is the most powerful weapon a marketing person has in his arsenal, is not being appreciated. And I think classical marketing people may even get sidelined, which would not be in the long-term interest of industry, I feel. And this route may actually increase cost of sales and cost of marketing rather than bring it down. When you rely more on bottom of the funnel, when you rely more on your salesman to go and complete the sale, when you rely more on your dealer to complete the sale, it will always be much more expensive than if you can create a brand through top of the funnel advertising and the consumer comes and asks for your brand by name. That will always be a more arduous journey, but in the long run, I think it'll be cheaper to do that than
Focus on
bottom
performance.
funnel.
We'll move to the rapid fire now. So, like this, these are a bunch of questions that we thought of. So, what was your first salary, Sam?
First salary, I remember it clearly, it was 800 rupees at Sarabais. And I would say it was at the lower end. I think most other people, I think, got a salary of about 1,200 or something. But I was happy with it because, as I told you, my professor only offered me the job. So I just took it.
At that point, the entry level salary for like a CA, like entry level remuneration for a CA would be like roughly.
No, I think it would be lower.
It would be lower.
Lower, yeah.
Okay. If you had to explain your job or business to a 5-year-old, how would you do that?
My job today, fortunately, is many, many different things. I mean, we now have a very successful, small, but very successful creative unit too in Madison Loop.
Yeah.
We have Madison Media, we have Madison PR, we have Madison Activation. So, I would broadly say we help sell a product.
One thing you absolutely love about advertising?
What I like about advertising and my job is that I'm constantly doing different things. An outsider may think that I'm doing the same thing for the last 50 years. But in reality, I'm doing every day different things. I mean, applying your mind to a media issue, a PR issue, a digital issue, applying your mind to a soap, to a car, to a thing are all different challenges, I think, which keep you reasonably, active and involved. And you're not doing kind of the same thing, which I think sometimes a marketing job also suffers from.
Right.
Because, if you're selling ice cream, then you're focused only on ice cream. So if you're doing it for 10 years, then you might say that's getting into the same thing. But here we are
Dealing with multiple clients.
multiple challenges, multiple categories, multiple actions, from launches to relaunches to defensive action to offensive action. I think that's the good part of advertising.
And if it was not advertising, what career would you be in?
I don't know. I suppose maybe I would have been in marketing. I think one of my wife's early regrets was when I left Cadbury. She said, if you hadn't left, maybe one day we would have lived in the bungalow that was there next to Cadbury. I don't know if you all know, but next to Cadbury House in the same compound was a white bungalow in which the managing director, who in my time was always a foreigner, stayed. It was a very nice bungalow, very prominently located.
But the current bungalow is also very
No. Yeah, well, I mean, grass is always greener.
Yeah.
Where I live is in Jogeshwari, very far away.
One thing you hate about advertising, or you have a disappointment with advertising? Because hate is a very stronger word. That's why I feel.
Well, I think obviously the kind of challenges of cutting the coat according to the cloth that the advertiser gives you, I think is always a challenge. And I think in today's time, more and more advertisers are making unreasonable demands on us, I feel, and not wanting to resource us enough.
One lesson you've learned the hard way?
I think it'll have to be not to overreact, to be calm, cool, and find a practical solution or make the best out of a given situation.
And like one thing that you're really proud of in the process of building Madison, like one that moment that has actually changed your life also for good?
I think proud is not the right word. I would say, obviously, I think the very fact that we have survived, I think, is a matter of some satisfaction to us. Obviously, I do believe that, I have miles to go before I sleep.
And like one event that has changed your life for good, if you had to chalk down one of those, is it the time that you started Madison, or is there anything else?
I think at a personal level, I don't know if you know this, but my elder daughter is blind. And we kind of, through the painful discovery we made by the time she was 2 years or something, that something wrong in her eyesight. And then by the time she was 8, 9, she had completely lost her eyesight. And yet I find that she's so cheerful, she's full of life. Very often in the early days, I think when she was just during college, she would send me an SMS, some, I don't know, it was a forward or what, but something relevant to say, go on, motivating, this, that. So I kind of feel that, life is very tough for most people, and most people have challenges.
Yeah.
I think you just have to, make the best out of a given situation.
One thing that media doesn't know about you.
Oh, God, I think there have been so many talks like this that maybe it's an open book. I think everybody knows everything about me.
Speaking of
Like
books,
you knew so much about me before you came.
so speaking of books, if you had to title your autobiography, what would that be?
I would say maybe I haven't given it much thought, but now that they're asking me, it's possible.
And lastly, your mantra for life, like one single mantra or like a life mantra that you live by, swear by.
I would say, I think you do your best and leave the rest to God.
The best piece of advice that you have ever received from someone and that has stuck with you through the years.
I think after I had finished BCom, I was in Bombay for my vacation, and I was fortunate to meet, I think, a gentleman who was the managing director of a Tata company. And one of the things I remember is he said, remember, wherever you are working, always contribute 5 times more than what you earn from that company. If you do that and make that your mantra, then you will be successful. He said, don't, the worst situation to be in is where what you're taking from the company is much more than you're giving to the company. Then I think your days are numbered.
Right.
I think it was, according to me, very good advice, especially in today's time when more and more youngsters are asking, what's in it for me? I think that can come at a later stage. I think one of the best books in this HR subject is written by my friend Mowgli, the ex-head of Cadbury, where he says you break the catalyst. I advise every young person in a career to read that book. He says you split your career into two halves. In the first half, in the first 20 years, you contribute to the company and learn. If you do that, the next 20 years, you'll be rewarded very richly. If in the first 20 years only you are focusing on your earning rather than contributing and learning, then you'll never, the next 20 years will not be so rewarding for you.
One advice if you could go back in time and give to your younger self, that's Sam. To your younger self. To Sam of
To myself.
Yeah. To Sam of 80s, to Sam of 90s.
To be cooler and calmer in each and every situation and worry less. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but
Yeah, it does. And I think in hindsight, if you had been cooler and calmer back then, things would have been much different for you now, assuming. Because that's
maybe, or I think Also, I think one thing I must say, which I did mention all this while, I think whatever you do during your life, in terms of work and all that, you can't forget your health. For example, I didn't spare a thought for my health till 12 years ago. I had to go through a bypass. I was under the impression that I'm slim, I'm active, I'm this, that. So I didn't do any exercise, workout, this, that, nothing. Now I do yoga every morning. I go for a walk at night. I remember even hearing Junjunwala. You know who he is, right? Okay. When he died recently, I believe he was worth 44,000 crores. I heard him say on CNBC, his one regret is that he did not look after his health. And he said, now it's too late. Because he had every kind of ailment, from heart to whatever else. So I think health is also very important. You tend to ignore it in your younger days, although there is much greater health consciousness now. But I think a lot of people still do ignore it.
Your advice for young advertising and marketing professionals out there?
I think we've covered it, right? I mean, I would say whatever I said earlier, that, whether it is advertising or, okay, maybe I can say, I think in advertising, I think you have to have the ability to recall your past experiences and be able to draw insights from those experiences and apply them appropriately to the problem at hand. I don't know if it makes sense to you. So I have often felt that a person in advertising today has lived in a small town and who does not come from a very well-to-do or successful or a moneyed family, I think would make a better advertising person. I think a person who lives, say, even today in Bombay or in New York, tends to put on a certain artificiality and behaves the way he wants the other person to perceive him. Whereas in a small town, I think each person is himself or herself. Yeah. He or she say it the way it is. It kind of allows you to experience their thinking, insights. In cities and all, everybody is camouflaging. Yeah. Also, if you are not so well to do, you've traveled in trains, you have traveled with people, you have shared food with others at a railway station, or it kind of enriches your your experiences, I feel, which is good for advertising. You're not sort of living in a cocooned elitist world, unaware of how people are living.
And I think to make a career in advertising and marketing, you have to have your eyes.
It's just like how
ears on ground.
I tell our media people also that, you also need to see your ads on TV, on digital, in newspaper. And today's media planners don't do that enough. They are going by their computer screens. They are going by monitoring reports. I like to see the ad on TV or on YouTube or something. That's the reality, right? So I think you have to go through that reality.
There's more coming your way, so stay tuned for the next episode of the Pulse podcast and don't forget to hit subscribe.